Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Amanda and this is my channel all about knitting. This week's video is just sitting down and chatting about what I've been working on, what I've been finishing. I did finish my Lauder cardigan, I've cast on a new pullover, I have a book to talk about, a question that came in that I'd love to answer, and all sorts of other fun things to talk about today with you. So if that interests you, definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's jump on in. Quickly, I also do want to say that everything I talk about today, as well as links to all my socials, all those sorts of things, are always down below in the description for you. So if you're interested in anything I talk about today, that's where you're going to find it. So I think we'll start with my finished object today, then we'll jump into the question, and then we'll talk about works in progress. But yeah, I don't want to hold off too long on my finished object because I'm so very proud of this. I think this might be my favorite thing I've ever knit. Or maybe my favorite cardigan I've ever knit. I definitely have some pullovers that get a lot of wear, but this is definitely my most favorite cardigan ever. I'm very proud of it, so I'm really excited to talk to you about this today. Like I said, this is my Lauder Cardigan V-Neck. This is a pattern that came out this past weekend from Clow, and it is literally a beast. There are so many options in this pattern. I think there's 6. So you have just like a regular crew neck pullover, a V-neck pullover, crew neck cardigan, V-neck cardigan, or I guess a rounded neck cardigan, whatever you want to call it, a V-neck vest, and a regular necked vest. So there's 6 different patterns included in this one pattern for her regular pattern price, which I think is pretty amazing. I test knit the V-neck cardigan. So I knit the size 4 for this one out of Sandnes Garn Double Sunday in the color Acorn. And I did say I would talk about what I thought about the Sandnes Garn, so we will get into that a little bit later. But I want to talk kind of about the construction of the sweater and that sort of stuff first. So I think I will stand up so I can show you a little bit better. You always lose my head in these shots, but I feel like you kind of want to see the cardigan anyways more than my face. So we'll jump into kind of details about the cardigan. I'll show you that. And then we'll talk a little bit more about yarn and fit and that sort of stuff. The way I've set myself up in the corner today, my chair is not moving. I don't want to deal with it. So it'll just be behind me, but I don't think that's too much of a problem. So here it is. Like I said, it's a V-neck cardigan with a ribbed button band. There are 4 buttons on this one, though I think if you wanted to add more buttons, you could totally adjust that. I will say I wish I maybe put this one ever so slightly lower, but at the same time, I'm not the type of person to button up a cardigan very often, so it doesn't matter. These buttons I just got at Hobby Lobby. They were like $2 for a pack of 6, I think. There are 18mm buttons. The pattern does call for 20, but the 18 seem to work just fine, so I think that's okay. Hits me about like just below my hips. I did knit it, I think, ever so slightly longer than the pattern called for. There's just a ribbed button band at the bottom as well, and ribbed cuffs. I finished everything with a tubular bind off. And then probably one of my favorite details about this is the shoulder here, where this cable runs along the whole shoulder and then like splits into the tops of the arm where you pick up stitches for the sleeve. The decreases on the underarm I think are really well, like about as well hidden as you can do for cables. So once you run out of stitches for a cable, you kind of just continue fading them in. And then this cable here in the middle runs down the whole sleeve. Yeah, okay, so let's talk construction first. This is knit from the top down. You start with the back, then you pick up for the two fronts and shape the V, connect at the underarm, and then just knit the whole body flat because it is a cardigan. Cabling wise, knitting this flat was totally fine. All the cables are only worked on the right side of your fabric, so there's no like wrong side cabling. And honestly, I didn't find purling to be too bad. I think because it's broken up a lot by the columns in between all of these cables here, the purling wasn't so bad, because then on the wrong side, you're only doing like 6 stitches, then you have a knit, or 4 stitches, you have a knit, that sort of thing. So I really didn't find working the wrong side of this bad at all. The sleeves are all knit in the round, so they went really fast because of that. Maybe 2 days of knitting per sleeve, I would say. Now keep in mind, I'm a very fast knitter, but yeah, I don't think the sleeves took me too long at all. I did pick them up and work them before I finished the whole body on this, just to give myself a bit of a break. That's usually what I tend to do. You'll see that later in this episode with something else I'm working on right now. But yeah, there are decreases, obviously, as I was showing you on the sleeves, so they fit nice and snug. The body has a little bit of extra room in there, which I really like. I think I have about 3 to 4 inches of positive ease for my size, and I'm quite happy with that. I maybe would have wanted the sleeves to be a wee bit looser, but I will say as I've been wearing them, they are stretching out a little bit more too. This is one of my first cabled garments I've knit with a non-superwash yarn, and so even though I blocked my swatch and I kind of knew how it was going to behave, it is behaving a little bit differently than a superwash garment would for me. So it's been interesting to see kind of how it's grown with wear too, because I find after I block something that's knit with superwash yarn, obviously you block it, you wash it, and it grows. But then as I wear it, I feel like sometimes it pulls down a little bit, the sleeves open up a little bit more with wear, where it's maybe not doing it as much with this non-superwash, but it still is a little bit. So that was definitely something interesting that I have kind of learned with this. I do love the feel of the double Sunday. I do find it to be very warm. I wore it outside one day and it was, as the wind is starting again, hopefully you can't hear it too much in the background, but it's rainy and windy today, so hopefully the camera's not picking that up too much. But I wore this outside without a coat on a day much like today, and it was very warm. I didn't feel like I needed a jacket. It kept me perfectly warm. So I quite like that. I will say, someone else had mentioned when I was talking, like when I first cast on with this, and I was going to use the double Sunday, which I'd never used before, that it pills pretty easily. I would say that's pretty accurate. I do already have some pilling, and I've maybe only worn this 2 full days and one or 2 half days, the day I took the photos of it, and today and one other day. Okay, so maybe a day and a half of half days. We'll say I've worn it for like 3 full days. And I do already have some pilling in the underarms. I'm not noticing it much on the body. I'm noticing corgi fur, but I'm not noticing much pilling on the body. There's definitely some on the arms though, but it doesn't look like anything I couldn't remove with like a de-piller pretty easily. So I'm not too concerned about that, but that's definitely something I can keep you updated on if you're interested in the continued wear of this. But otherwise, yeah, I am very, very pleased with how this came out. I think it's super cute. I think the fit is great. I love like where the V hits me, where it kind of swoops out and sits. I think it's great. I'm happy with the size 4 that I chose. And yeah, I think this is going to be a really big staple in my wardrobe. I will say though, looking at the photos of Acorn online when I purchased it, it looked to be a lot more neutral, but once I was trying to pick buttons out for it, this is definitely like more of a purple leaning brown. So like you can see these buttons that I've chosen are definitely more of like a cool sort of color. Anything that had even a little bit of warmth to it looked kind of funny. I don't know, I had a hard time picking out buttons for it. So especially because I wanted something that wasn't like super statement-y. I wanted the cardigan to shine and not the buttons. So I had a hard time picking out buttons. I had a friend with me when I was picking these out, and I didn't notice these, but she did, and they ended up being my favorite. So yeah, I think that is most everything. Did I mention I did this whole thing without a cable needle? I would highly recommend, if you want to knit this, there's very few rows of break from cabling, and if I had to do this holding a cable needle, I think I would have gone nuts. So I highly, highly recommend doing this without a cable needle. All the cables are simple enough to do it without a cable needle. Also would be a great way to learn, because you're not doing it with a terribly small, thin yarn. You're not cabling with fingering weight or something like that. It is a DK weight, so the stitches are a little bit larger. They're a little bit easier to hold in your fingers. And yeah, I highly, highly recommend learning to cable without a cable needle for this, if this is something you're interested in knitting. But yeah, overall, very happy with the pattern, very pleased with how it turned out. I had some friends tell me when I wore it for the first time around them that it looked like something I bought in a store, which I take as a very high compliment. So yeah, I think it's a really, really beautiful piece and something I'm going to get a lot of wear out of. It's very cozy and soft for a non-superwash yarn, and I think it's really pretty. So yeah, that's my Lauder cardigan. Like I said, the pattern is live now. I'm not sure if the sale is, unfortunately. This video is a wee bit late, but even at the full price of this, I think it's like, let me look. So that's €7, 12.50 Canadian, or $9.25 US. I think for what you're getting out of the pattern, totally worth the price. Very reasonably, if underpriced. So yeah, love my Lauder cardigan. Very pleased with it. Would I knit it again? Yes. If I was in the mood to cable. Like, do I feel like I need another one? No, but that's really only because there's so many other things out there that I could knit that I really personally never knit something twice, but I think it's a really nice, staple, classy looking cardigan that pretty much anyone could use in their wardrobe. So yeah, let's move on to the question. So I had a question come in on my Google form, which is always linked down below. I'm just really, really bad at talking about it, but I have a Google form in my description that just, if you have something you want me to talk about, a video you'd be interested in, a question you have, sometimes they get lost in the comments on my videos, and I always try to answer all my comments, but sometimes I'll answer it and forget to write it down, something like that. But when I go to make a video, I pull up the Google form and I can see everything there and kind of decide if there's anything that came in that I want to talk about. If I'm lacking video ideas, I pull them from there sometimes. If you have a question, feel free to leave it in that form so it's easier for me to see. Someone asked me to talk a little bit about substituting superwash yarn into a pattern that calls for non-superwash yarn. And to be honest, in my opinion, there's not much you have to do other than swatch and see what it's going to do, because like I was talking about earlier, superwash yarn grows a lot more than non-superwash yarn. Non-superwash yarn tends to hold its shape and not grow very much with blocking. You can obviously still like even your stitches out nicely when you block it. There's other issues about non-superwash yarn, such as being careful what temperature you block it at and wash it at, because it can felt really, really easily. Non-superwash yarn also has the scales to it still, where superwash yarn, all of those cuticles or scales are removed from it, and that's kind of what gives it that superwash quality, so that you don't have to worry so much about felting when you're blocking it, where non-superwash yarn has those cuticles. That's what causes them to felt. But that can also be really nice for color work because the yarns will stick together that little bit. Kind of rambling now. But yeah, those are kind of the differences between the two. The main difference between superwash and non-superwash yarn is non-superwash has those cuticles, which causes those felting properties, and you have to be more careful with it, where non-superwash doesn't. But as for substituting it in a pattern, it really doesn't matter. Use a non-superwash yarn, use a superwash yarn if it calls for DK, and you're not going to see much difference other than the blocking process, in my opinion. So it's going to grow more if it's a superwash yarn. So I would highly recommend doing a nice big gauge swatch. Measure it before you block it, and measure it after you block it, so you have an idea how much it is going to grow. So then when you're knitting to the measurements in the pattern, your garment is likely going to grow more than the sample garment was. So then you kind of have to factor that in. Honestly, in my personal opinion, I don't pay much attention to that growth factor. I kind of just know, like I do my gauge swatch. I know if I have gauge or not, and I just knit to the pattern and I call it good. And if it ends up ever so slightly longer than the sample, I don't care. But that is really the only thing you have to pay attention to, is the growth rate for a superwash and a non-superwash are going to be different. So I just rambled like crazy. Hopefully that makes sense. Please leave a comment down below if you have more questions about it, or if it made no sense, and I'll try and answer it for you down in the comments. Yeah, there's really not much. Like a DK superwash and a DK non-superwash, if they have the same yardage, they're gonna do the same thing. It's just that growth rate that is gonna be a little bit different. I jump around between the two so often. I obviously use superwash yarn more because I dye superwash yarn. Unless you're steeking. Okay, no, this is a totally different thing now, but if you're knitting a pattern that calls to steek, I would be very intentional about reinforcing everything if you're using a superwash yarn, because it doesn't stick together like a non-superwash yarn does. So if you just go and cut through a superwash yarn, it's gonna unravel. Where a non-superwash yarn, you could just cut through and steek it and it should hold together. So that also makes non-superwash yarn really nice for color work because it sticks together a little bit more too, but yeah. The only main difference I'm still gonna stick with is block it. There's gonna be some growth differences. Yeah. I had really good notes for this, and then I get talking about what I wrote down and I kind of ramble, but yeah. I hope that answers your question. If I just made myself sound really dumb, I'm sorry. Let's move on to works in progress. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. I hope that helped. Works in progress. I have a new cast on. I have two things that I've been working on that you've seen a little bit before. Yeah, let's talk about my Interthreading cardigan first. This is a pattern I am testing for Hannah Sandler of Sandmade Knits. I am knitting the size 6, and I obviously wasn't paying attention when I applied for this test because I just learned a couple days ago that I'm going to be knitting the sleeves flat on this. So that's going to be interesting. I have never done that before. I have knit the sleeves separately and seamed them on before, but I've never knit them flat, seamed them together, and seamed them on. So I'm going to be learning some new stuff with this sweater, or cardigan rather. It's going to be fun. But I have it joined in, well, not in the round. I have it joined under the arms now. So both my fronts are done. It's connected. I'm just working back and forth flat on it now. Yeah, and it's been really fun. It definitely eats through yarn, I will say. You can see all of these floats that run across the front of it, and that eats through yarn a lot. Normally I feel like I would only be about halfway through my first 2 balls of yarn at this point, but I am almost done with my first 2 balls of yarn. Let me find them. Yeah, that's all I have left of my first 2 little cakes. But so it's definitely eating through yarn, but it's not making it any slower to knit. It's just, yeah, the floats obviously use more yarn because that's all extra yarn that's going across the front of the cardigan. So that is where I am. The due date for this got extended, so I am working on a couple other things really quickly to get them finished, and then I'll go back and hunker down on this one. But you can see the size is going to be quite oversized on me. I think we're going to have about 10 inches of positive ease. I'm knitting the size 6, and it's just going to be a really big, cozy, like higher necked cardigan. I am going to make mine cropped, is my plan. I want to be able to wear it kind of with dresses or high-waisted jeans. So yeah, I'm planning to make it cropped. I do think the pattern calls for cropped as well. I do remember there also being a note in the pattern while I'm sitting here talking about it that the designer has a very short torso, so to keep that in mind when you're knitting it. And make sure you try it on, because if you knit 2 pattern measurements and your torso is longer, which mine happens to be, it might be really, really cropped. So I'll have to keep that in mind. But yeah, last time my stitch marker on this isn't even really relevant, because last time I was just on one of these front pieces. So I will move that down now for next episode. But this yarn is Maple Walnut on Birch DK. So it's just a really pretty beige with a whole bunch of different maple and like chocolate brown warmer speckles. I think it's going to make for a really wearable piece, like something that will match with a lot of stuff in my wardrobe, which was my plan. That's what I wanted. But yeah, I'm going to be knitting some sleeves flat. I think I might try to do them at the same time on the same needle, just so I for sure make sure they end up the same length. I don't miss anything up. And I think that will work pretty well. Since I'm doing them flat, I find knitting in the round, like 2 at a time socks, really fiddly and annoying, but because I'll be working them flat, I think it shouldn't be too much of an issue at all. So yeah, let's move the stitch marker on this. Is there anything else? Obviously you can see construction, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but you can see the construction on this is quite similar to the Lauder, where you work the whole back panel, then you pick up for the 2 front panels, and now it's connected to work flat at the underarm. And yeah, I'll just be working flat for quite some time. Maybe I'll start the sleeves at some point just to have something else to work on that feels a little faster. Like, even though it's going to be knit flat, it's obviously a lot less, the rows are a lot shorter than working on the body. So I might start those soon-ish, just so I have some stuff I can go back and forth on, kind of mix it up. I find that makes flat knitting a lot more enjoyable for me, to have a couple different options to work on. So yeah. Anything else I want to say? I don't really think so. It's been really fun. I guess I could show you the top seam here. Like, look how you can barely tell where that is. The seam is right here where my finger is, where I connected the fronts and the back. If I pull on it a little bit, you can tell. But Hannah's done a really good job at making that look super seamless, in my opinion. Obviously, if you're staring at it really close up, you can see, but like from back here, you can't even tell where that seam is. So I think that's really great. Yeah, gonna keep working away on that. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do for buttons. I have literally no idea. Maybe something tortoiseshell type would be pretty. Let me know what you think, but yeah. So I've definitely got some work on that, but now I'm working on what I'll show you next, just because the turnaround for it is a wee bit shorter. Not, gosh, I hope you can't hear my stomach growling. Yeah, the turnaround on it is a little bit shorter, which I knew when I signed up for it, but now it needs a little bit of priority. This is from Birch Grove, by the way. I think I've been quite bad at saying where my bags are from lately. Okay, let us talk Opal sweater. This is something, I think I talked about the yarn a little bit last episode, but I hadn't cast it on yet. I was still waiting for some yarn to arrive. So let me show you, I'll show you my main color at least, and then there's a whole bunch of contrast colors that I'm still kind of deciding on what I'm doing. But my main color for this, I'm holding these 2 together. This is 1985. There's Sauna Base from Wool Dreamers, and this is, I always forget because it does not have the fanciest name, dark blue-green. This is the Biches and Boucher Le Petit Silk Mohair. So I'm holding them together. It's giving a really cool marled look. I was a little worried when this had already arrived and then the Sauna arrived, and it looked a lot lighter in person than it did on my computer screen, but I think it's giving a really cool effect. This is where I am. Yeah, this looks really neat on camera. Now I have some tangly yarn I gotta deal with here, but this looks really cool on camera. It's kind of like a little bit marly, but it definitely deepens that Sauna up a lot. I think it's really pretty. So, as you can see, I've got a lot done. I have split for the sleeves on this, and then I worked a little bit on the body and then decided I wanted to pick up and work on one of the sleeves. So that is what I'm doing now. This is my row counter from Twice Sheer Cheap. That's how I keep track of rows on sleeves. So for this sleeve, there are no decreases on it, but I do want to count how many rows I do before I start the color work on the sleeve so that I know how to knit the other sleeve exactly to the same measurement. So that's what I'm counting with that on here, but I'll knit the main color for the sleeve until I hit about my elbow, and then I will start the color work for it, which maybe I'll pop another picture up on the screen here of the sleeve color work. It's really, really pretty. And that's kind of what drew me to the sweater. I have another sweater from Ozetta, and what is it called? Like the Seaway or something? It has cables on it, but I really love the fit of it. And so I chose my sizing for this based off of that fit, and I want it to fit quite similarly. And with the shaping and everything of it, it's pretty similar to the shaping of whatever that's called. So yeah, that's how I picked my size. That took a lot. Anyways, in this box, here are my color work yarns. So I'll be holding Mohair and Sauna again for those. I feel like I matched these ones really, really well. This is the color Grown in Sauna and Dusty Artichoke from Knitting for Olive, their Mohair. And then I think I'm going to do, oh, that's the one I'm having issues with. I'll leave that for a second. We'll talk about the other one first. So then I am using the colorway Notes in the Sauna and Marzipan in the Knitting for Olive Mohair. And then the issue I'm having, this is another kind of my screen not matching photos sort of thing. So I can't decide if I want to do, the Sauna color I'm going to use is Starsheaf, and I'm going back and forth between Mushroom Rose and, what are you, Morning Haze. Both of them don't really, actually on camera Morning Haze looks not too bad. It's a little bit more gray, but then I also thought this might be cool because it would give it a bit of a pinky tone. So let me know what you think. This definitely looked more pink when I was looking at photos on their website, so that's why I had originally ordered this one, and then I wasn't sure, and then this one ended up too gray, so that's where I'm at. I would dye something up for it, but I don't have a Mohair base, I just have a Sari base, and I don't want to mix those, so that's where I am with that. I should also mention, my fault for not saying it at the beginning, but I was sent all of this yarn, minus the Knitting for Olive Mohair. I did purchase that myself, but all of the other Sauna and the Beaches and Boucher Mohair I was graciously sent from Wool Dreamers and Ozetta for this test knit, so thank you very much for that. But obviously, opinions are all my own. I would never be dishonest about anything. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the colors. I will say, I've contacted Wool Dreamers about this, so I'll start off with that, but I was a little disappointed. One of my balls of Sauna in the 1985 colorway has had 4 knots in it already, and I literally just started using it. So I did contact them about that. I'm not sure if that's like a mistake, but I also wanted to know kind of what their policy was on knots. I know some companies, if they have like more than 2 or 3 knots in their ball or cake, that doesn't pass their quality check, and they'll like send you a replacement ball. I'm not asking for a replacement ball because I was sent the yarn for free. That is not what I'm asking for at all, but I definitely want them to know how many knots I found in it already, because maybe that's something that quality-wise kind of got missed, and now they'll want to check that dye lot or something. So yeah, that was a little disappointing, because now I have a bajillion more ends that I'm gonna have to weave in, but yeah. Otherwise, I'm quite happy with it. Blocking the swatch for this was interesting. This is, the Sauna is a mix of non-superwash, merino, and cotton. And so it was interesting to watch kind of how it blocked. It really didn't grow much at all. So I definitely had to adjust my needle size differently than I would for this gauge usually. The gauge the pattern calls for is, I think, 21 stitches per 4 inches. So I definitely had to adjust that. And then that did throw off my row gauge a lot. I think I'm getting about 32 stitches per 4 inches and the pattern calls for 38. So because of that, like the stopping point of my raglan is sitting a lot deeper. I did try it on and I'm not unhappy with where it's sitting. So that's good. But yeah, it was just weird. I usually don't have that much of a difference in row gauge. Usually I never hit row gauge, but usually I have like a lot smaller of a row gauge than the pattern calls for, not a lot larger of a row gauge. But blocking, it's not going to grow a lot, so kind of where it's sitting when I try it on now is kind of what it's going to be when it's blocked, so that's kind of nice in a way. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, having fun. The fabric is definitely a lot airier than I expected. Let me pull this out again. I don't know if you'll be able to see the light coming through it on the camera. The fabric is definitely a lot airier than I expected, but I think it's really pretty and quite drapey almost, but like in a cotton drapey way, if that makes sense. I don't know. I've been having fun. It's been nice to just have like a pretty simple, mindless stockinette project, and once the color work starts, that's always so much fun and it goes so fast. So yeah, let me know what you think I should do for, let me just grab it again really quick. Let me know what you think I should use for the mohair for the sar sheaf. I think I'm leaning towards this one, but excited to keep working on that. Hopefully next episode, next sit down episode, I should be pretty darn far on it, if not finished. We'll see. We'll see. I've had a hibernating project sitting in this bag for so long and I wanted to use it so badly that I just took it out and stuck it in a bucket. Not a bucket, a basket that I have on the floor that shouldn't be on the floor. Anyways, I wanted to use this bag, so I pulled this one back out. This is from Brooklyn Haberdashery, but I love it. I really like tote bags for knitting. I find they're really easy to just pick up and go with, so this has always been one of my favorites. I'm glad to have it back in rotation. The other project that I brought to show you is my Stella Quilt Blanket. I skipped showing this last episode because I really didn't have much progress on it, but I have some now, so I thought I would quickly show you. I am knitting this out of an undyed 75-25, so 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon that I purchased, as well as my 2023 Homespun House advent calendar and just some random scraps. As well, I'm kind of just picking and choosing and doing, I'm trying to keep the calendar in order-ish from the front end. Okay, let's back up. I didn't want to do the calendar fully in order because it is a fade, and I thought it would bug me that some of them were like really, really close together and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but also that once I hit the point where color 8 and color 1 matched, it would be like a huge jog that wouldn't be anywhere else in the motif. So what I'm doing is alternating from the front and the back of the advent. So color 1, color 24, color 2, color 23, color 3, color 22, etc. Now in doing that, there was a couple, at least in this one so far, I haven't gone through all of the mini skeins and laid them out, but there was like one spot where there was just going to be one random blue section, so I switched that out for a scrap, and that's kind of what I'm going to continue doing throughout. But here we are. I've almost finished. Oh no, I haven't. I lied. I still have one full row and then a square. So yeah, I guess I have almost finished, but here it is. It's definitely a little bit more crazy than my brain was thinking it would be, but it's cool. We'll see how the rest of them turn out. If I end up not liking them, maybe I'll just give it as a baby blanket gift or something. I don't know. But that's where I am. And yeah, it's been so much fun to knit. I've been trying to do like a square or two every couple days, and it's been going quite well. They knit up pretty quickly. Like I would say one little square maybe takes me an hour, which isn't too bad. And the whole thing is garter stitch, so I'm just knitting the whole time with like increases and decreases scattered throughout. So how this pattern works, there's two different ways that you can put these squares together when they're finished. You can either do them all individually and seam them together, which is what I'm planning on doing, just so the blanket isn't too heavy and it's a little bit easier to like work on, as opposed to having to carry a big, huge blanket around with me all the time. Or you can do a motif and then join the next one on and start working on the next one and have it worked as one big piece. Doing individual motifs, I will block them all when they're done and then seam them together, and it should be really fun. I will only be able to get 3 squares out of my Homespun House advent calendar. And then I'm planning just to use like scraps and other stuff for the rest of the squares. I think I'll only, like this is coming out quite large, so I think I'll really only need maybe 6 of these, maybe 8, maybe 6 or 9, depending. I'll probably do 6, lay it all out, see the size that I get, and then decide if I want to make a couple more. But yeah. It'll be an ongoing project. I definitely want to get one done quickly because I am preview knitting this. The pattern is written up and pretty much ready to go, but Laura is just getting everyone to, or everyone, she's picked some people to just knit the pattern up, see if there is a mistake, but it's pretty much ready to go. So yeah, that is that. It's been very fun. It's making me want to make some Stella Quilt cushions for our bed. I think they would be really sweet on it, so that might be down the line. We'll see. But I should definitely pay attention and work on the blanket for the time being. Dang, I hope the lighting isn't changing too much. It's getting quite dark outside. I think the rain's gonna start up again, and I feel like the room is getting darker, but hopefully it's not too bad. Anyways, yeah, loving the Stella Quilt blanket. Been working on that on and off, and it's been really, really fun. A great way to use up my advent too. I find I get the mini skein advents and then I'm like, I'll knit a shawl, and then I don't like wearing shawls and it just sits there. So this is something different that I think everyone in the house is going to be able to get a lot of use out of when it's finished, so I'm excited for that. Other than that, I have some acquisitions, so if that's something that interests you, we'll talk about those. I have a book, actually, which I haven't grabbed out of here yet. So I have some yarn that I want to talk about, and then I have a book to talk about. So might as well start with the yarn. I've wanted to try this yarn for so long, and I have a secret test knit coming up that I thought would be really good for it. So this is Wonderfluff from Knit Picks. So it's a blown yarn. Let me see if I can, I guess I should say the color first, hey? There's no color name on it. That's sad. Oh, Kale Heather. It's really pretty, like emeraldy green. But the way blown yarn works is there's like a tube of yarn, and then they blow yarn inside of that tube to create this really fuzzy, I don't know, soft, wonderful yarn. I don't know tons about it. It's kind of also why I wanted to work with it, because I haven't before and I want to see how it behaves. It is, let's see, 70% baby alpaca, 23% nylon, 7% merino wool. From what I understand, the tube that everything is blown into is nylon, and then what they've blown into the tube is the alpaca and the merino. It is so soft. It behaves as a bulky weight. It definitely doesn't look like a bulky. With the blown yarns, from what I understand, you can kind of shift them into different weights of yarn and they'll behave how you want them to. So the pattern I'm knitting is, it calls for an Aran weight, but this should work just fine. So I'm really excited to swatch with it and see how it works up. Oh my gosh, a sweater out of this, like something that's meant to have a lot of drape and oversizedness to it, I think would be beautiful. in a blown yarn. I'll let you know what I think. Quick plug as well, if you're interested in it, I do have an affiliate link with Knit Picks that is down below. I also have an affiliate link with Twice Shared Sheep that's down there as well too. No pressure to use them, but the way they work, if you use my link, I get a small cutback of your sale. It doesn't cost you anything extra if that's something you're interested in. I won't be able to show you the project, but maybe I will like peek the bottom of it up on screen so I can show you how this is knitting up as I work with it and kind of let you know what I think. Very excited to try it. I've wanted to, like I said, try a blown yarn for ages. So there's that. And then Amy of Knit was talking about this book on her last episode, and I've wanted it for ages, but I haven't seen it anywhere in the States. And so where was it that had it? One second. I'll see if there are any left. So if you are interested in grabbing a copy as well, I can give you this information if it is still available. Anyways, while I'm searching this up, this is Softly Timeless Knits from Sari Nordlund. It's Fiber Space. They do have it in stock, it looks like. There's 3 more copies left, so if this interests you, that's the only place I've been able to find it in the States. Thank you, Amy, because I wanted it so badly. All the patterns in this book are only available in the book. I love Sari's patterns. I don't knit them often because they're very heavily cabled and I just don't have the time for a lot of heavily cabled things, but I definitely want to cast on some stuff out of here. So I will link the shop and the link to this book down below in the description if you are interested in grabbing a copy. Anyways, let us get into this book. It is beautiful. There's 22 patterns in here and it's only $36 US. So I think that's a pretty good deal in my opinion, even if you only wanted to knit like 2 or 3 things out of here for that price. It is not bad at all. Let me pull up, hopefully you can see this well. This is some of them. So there are hat patterns in here, there are tanks, there are shawls, socks, there's literally everything in here. There's the rest of them. It's a beautiful book. It's also not too big, which I appreciate, because I will say, like, the 52 weeks books from Lina, I love them, but they're quite large. I can flip through, let's see if I can find some photos that don't give away any pattern stuff to show you some of the things that are in here. I don't want to give away the patterns, obviously, but let's see. The photos in here are just gorgeous as well, too. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a real, like, coffee table. Oh my gosh, here we go. It's a real coffee table type book. Look how beautiful that is. This cardigan I would really like to knit. I just think that's so pretty. That is, what is the name of that pattern? Nilo? N-E-I-L-O. So that's definitely one of the ones on the top of my list out of here. There's another cardigan as well. There's also like every single weight of yarn in here. I'm looking at a sweater right now and I can't show you the picture because it will give away the pattern too much. But it is bulky weight, there's DK weight, there's fingering weight stuff in here. So that's nice too. It's not like a whole book literally just full of fingering weight patterns. This pullover is very pretty. That's called Calliope. Oh, perfect. Okay. I can show this one side to you. Isn't that beautiful as well? That one is Urania. It's like a really pretty stockinette cardigan, and then you have this really chunky cable running all down the button band. Beautiful. Anyways, yeah, I am very excited to have this a part of my book collection. I love collecting knitting books. They're just so fun to flip through. This tank is really beautiful as well. They're just so much fun to flip through. Hopefully my camera focused on all of those photos as well. But Yeah, for $36, I think this is a really great investment, and I will make sure I link the store down below that has it in stock, because like I said, I haven't been able to find it anywhere in the States, and shipping is so expensive to ship it from Finland that if you can grab it in the States, I definitely would. Other than that, I think that's my episode for the day, which is pretty good timing because it's getting darker and darker and darker outside. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Always would love to help you out if I can. Let me know what you're working on as well. I always love learning some new patterns from you. If you missed last week's episode, I did put up an episode all about spring and summer tanks to knit. There's some really fun patterns in there that I think you would love. If you liked what you saw today, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel out a lot, gets the video out to other knitters just like you. And I will see you again next week. Bye!